Hi there, it's Ron Gula from Gula Tech Adventures. In this week's VC 101 video, I'm going to share with you 10 tips that I wish I gave myself when I was starting out as an entrepreneur not too long ago. So if you know the channel, you know my background, I've been very lucky to have a really interesting career in both tech entrepreneurship, cybersecurity startups, and last 5-6 years as an investor. And I constantly find myself telling new entrepreneurs, new startup founders, lessons I've learned over the past 10 years or so, 30 years or so. And I put a lot of those into a channel, different types of videos here. Definitely check out the entire VC 101 series. But today, I'm writing a letter telling myself the 10 things to watch out for when I have my career. So this goes out to Ron Gula in 1997. All right, 10 things. So number 10, when I was coming out of the Air Force, I thought that if you wanted to work with the DoD or if you wanted to work with the government, you had to be a military person. You had to be a government employee. But that's not true. There's this term called Beltway bandits. It's a semi-affectionate, semi-irreverent to all the contractors that basically support, the Air Force, the NSA, the CIA, and so on. And, so the message is you don't have to be a government or military employee to work with the government or the military. Now, this might sound obvious to anybody who's in our industry, but for people who don't come out of the military industrial base complex or, they don't really see that kind of side of things, it's very, very surprising. And there's a lot of opportunities because sometimes it's easier to work with the third-party providers, these contractors, than it is to work directly with the U.S. government. So the ninth thing is that there are a infinite number of ways to sell software. Now, when I was starting out doing programming and trying to sell this, I was used to going to, Best Buy and various other stores and buying software, physically getting them on a disc, a CD, if I don't want to date myself that much. But it turns out there's a lot of ways you can sell software, right? You can be a contractor. You can be paid to write that software. You can give that software away for free as open source, not even sell it all. You can give it away as a community edition. Maybe you don't give away the source code, but you can do that. All the way up to do I want to sell the software perpetually so somebody owns it with some maintenance, or do I want to sell it with a subscription and a service? This changed a lot over the last 30 years, and I can only imagine, especially with the occurrence of artificial intelligence, we're going to have more upsets to our business models. Now, I got to work at a company called US Networking, and at the time, they were some of the first SaaS providers, as late 90s and so on. They would actually buy large licenses of software at a cheaper user-based pricing. Let's say a database had a license for 100 users. Maybe it cost $100 for each of those users. But maybe that same company had a database for 10,000 users, and maybe the price per user up there was like $3. Well, what US Networking was doing is taking the cheaper per unit price, but then selling it to customers who had 100 users at a time and really getting around that business model. I've seen this throughout my entire career. People who want to partner with you, license your technology, sometimes are going to have different business models and ways to license software. All right, number 8, you can work with your wife. This is actually an interesting topic because when we started our first company, Network Security Wizards, we got a lot of raised eyebrows. Oh, husband and wife team, mom and pop shop, all that sort of things. But it turns out, look, if you are transparent and you communicate with your employees and you have the type of culture that has that type of relationship, it's a very interesting thing to work with your spouse. So I've had 3 companies now, Network Security Wizards, Tenable, and now Gula Tech Adventures, where I work with my wife, Cindy Gula. Now, it's not just about a wife, a spouse. It could be a parent. I've seen father-son teams. I've seen brothers. I've seen many, many different combinations of relationships. It's business. You can make up your own adventure. People will say that's a risk. I mean, the divorce rate's high. I mean, what happens if there's a falling out between siblings? You have family issues that can spill over into business. There's risk, don't get me wrong. But it's your business. If you want to go there and that's somebody that you trust, then you should take that and not let people tell you that it's going to be a difficult journey. All right, number 7, frustration is going to be the thing that causes most inspiration. Now, I think we've all seen robots. We've all heard these quotes about go out and invent something, that sort of thing. But chances are, if you have an idea and you want to fix something, it's because you're frustrated. When I worked at US Networking, I worked with an intrusion detection system where I could not change the rules of the system. And one day I was chasing some hackers, and they changed their tactics. I couldn't update my scripts. So that was one of the things that inspired me to write the Dragon intrusion detection system, and Cindy and I found Network Security Wizards. Now, the corollary of this is not necessarily true, though, right? Just because something's frustrating for you, maybe it's not frustrating for somebody else. And I've seen, this is when I evaluate businesses right now, just because you've solved a problem for somebody doesn't mean that they're willing to, one, accept your solution. There's a lot of ways you can build a mousetrap, or two, be willing to pay for it. Sometimes people want to suffer through things and do things maybe a manual way versus automate them. Now, another corollary to this rule, prong number 7 here, is that a lot of times when I'm looking for things to invest in, it's very easy to talk to a founder and understand that they have a technology, but they don't have a problem that they're solving with it. So if there's a story about a technology, sometimes a company is just doing a company because they have great technology, but it's not really it doesn't have a problem to solve yet. So think about that when you're looking at investing in a company or starting a company. Are people going to want this solution? And, is this just technology that somebody's just trying to sell because it was a fun thing for an engineer to build? All right, number 6, you do not need venture capital. Now, I think if there's anybody out there who's done a successful company without extra investment, I think the Gulas have a lot of credit there, because Network Security Wizards, we didn't raise any money. And Tenable, even though we had a record-setting raising amount, Jack and Renaud, Cindy and myself, we ran such a tight ship. Most of the money that we raised was secondary. In other words, that went into the employees' benefit when they sold their stock. It wasn't an actual investment in the company. Now, it's pretty easy to say, hey, look, just go create a great company and have customers pay for it. It's easier said than done. But the opposite of that is also an issue too. There's a lot of companies who raise money and they raise too much money, or they raise it at a valuation that they're setting themselves up for failure. There's a lot of risk there. And if it was easy, look, everybody would be a CEO, everybody would be a founder, everybody would be an investor. There's risk with all of these kinds of things. But the vast majority of people coming out of business school have the formula of find a founder, invest seed, invest in the A, invest in B, and keep doing that pyramid scheme on the way up. And not, my issue is you got to focus on value. Every time we make an investment in Gula Tech Adventures, or more importantly, if we don't invest in somebody, we'll usually tell them, look, maybe you're good. You should just do what you're doing for a couple more years and grow that company. Because one of the things that you're going to find out, again, I'm speaking to myself in 1997 here, is that if you start a company and you get to a certain point where your technology is good and you have a few customers, the valuation of that company and what you put into your employees' pockets, so to speak, might be exactly what you do if you worked for 10 more years, raised $1 billion, and sold it for $10 billion. Because by the time you're successful, if that's how you'd want to define success, you might only own a percentage of that company. So keep that in mind. All right, number 5, the tech that you're embedding is not the most important thing in a business. Now, don't get me wrong, you need to have technology, you need to have something that you're selling, but it's not the most important. Tech alone doesn't make a business. There's so many other things that can make a business. How are you selling it? How are you marketing it? What's the competition? What's the timing of the tech? What's the pricing of the tech? Do people even want the tech? But so many people, and I kind of was very focused on the technology in the early days of Network Security Wizards, and also in the very early days of Tenable. It's when you start growing a business and you have employees who are managing other employees, and you have to have a culture, like all of those things can sink a company, and you have to pay attention to those things. Now, fortunately, I was able to learn from a lot of great mentors, a lot of great people along the way, but I continually see startups who have a technology and they just think the technology makes them worth $1 billion, or somehow it's so secret that you can't describe it. Well, if you can't describe it to an investor, you probably can't describe it to a customer. Now, along the lines of that, if your tech is good or is not good, you're going to have to do my number 4 recommendation, is you have to pivot. And pivots can be pivoting ahead of a customer. It can be pivoting to new businesses. One of the things that we did at Network Security Wizards is we never really pivoted to intrusion prevention. We were an intrusion detection technology. Right after we were acquired by Interisys, we were late to the intrusion prevention market. This was early 2000s for any of you cyber history buffs out there. Tenable, on the other hand, we pivoted every 2 years. We were, if not every year, we were always ahead of what customers were asking for, whether it was the doing cloud audits, doing configuration of routers and switches, auditing mobile devices, doing things agentlessly, passively, doing things with more credentials. Renault was really, really good about trying to get ahead of that. And a lot of those things weren't just more features; they were actual pivots of the ways we did, we did business. We also pivoted how we sold the technology. I already said earlier, there's a lot of ways to sell technology. We went from perpetual to subscription. It was a painful process, especially when the industry had been selling things, perpetual software, for the past 10, 15 years. But we did that pivot, and Tenable's a great company because we were able to do those things. All right, number 3. I already said tech is not the most important. There's a lot of other things out there. Communication is probably going to be the number one thing as a founder that you're going to have to do. The Gula Tech Adventures, we came up with a 5-slide pitch deck. What problem do you solve? How do you solve it? What are you going to? What kind of proof do you have that you can do these things? What are you going to do with the money? What's your vision of success? Well, it turns out when I was CEO at Tenable, I was practicing a lot of these things. I was trying to be very consistent with how I talk to an employee, to an investor, to a competitor, to a customer. And it was actually really, really, once you start thinking like that, it becomes very easy to focus on that. And anybody who's seen amazingly successful people talk about their business, they can describe these complex business processes in very easy to understand concepts for the general public. And that type of communication is just as important, if not more important, than having a good technology, have the right timing, and so on. So communication is my number 1 3. You got to focus on that and be consistent out of that. All right, now my number 2 lesson here is a product company is going to be more lucrative and more interesting to people than a services company. Now, before you leap through the camera and say I'm being down on services company. No, I'm talking about the business models, right? Now, there's some detractors to running product companies, but let's talk about services for a minute. Services are typically made up of smart people doing great things for customers that are very happy. Most contractors I talk to, most services people I talk to, they have repeat business, they have happy customers, they're awesome. And there's nothing wrong with those kind of businesses. Those businesses are driving a lot of what we do here in America. But if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to go public someday, or you want to put technology in the hands of thousands of people across the country, if not tens of thousands, you can't be in the services business. You have to offer them some sort of technology. Now that's a product. Now, services business, we've done some videos on this on the VC 101 series here. You're limited by the number of smart people you can hire, and you might even be at risk of being disruptive. If you're an artist or a writer, you're having AI probably disrupt that industry. But on the product side, you do have some risk, right? If you're late to market, if you don't have the right technology, if you don't communicate very well, your product technology, your product business might not be worth anything because you have a competitor that comes out and that sort of thing. But if you hit it at the right time, you can do the kind of things that Cindy and I and the team at Tenable did, where we were actually making more money from our customers than we were from our investors. And that's the ultimate goal you want to have in business. You want to be dependent upon your customers to be in a great business. All right, now my last number 1 feedback is that a team that's firing on all cylinders is always going to be better than a one-person team who's taking that company out. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade on single founders or armies of one types of founders. The very, very much first company that we did, even though I had some great people at Network Security Wizards, it was kind of Cindy and I's show. I did most of the coding. I actually worked for her for that one, right? But we sold that company pretty quickly. And within 2 years, we had site licenses at AOL, the DoD, that sort of thing. And we had a really good success. But if you compare that with Tenable, where we had a team and we constantly were upgrading sort of our core team of who was running the company and who was running product, who was running sales, we always had a good group of people. And even though I was kind of thinking, we might have the repeat of what we did with Network Security Wizard, Tenable actually turned out to be a very long and sustainable company because of that team. And now when I look at our portfolio of companies we have at Gula Tech Adventures, the ones that are kind of up and to the right have strong teams. They have strong teams. They have the ability to kind of do multiple things at the same time. They kind of take all the advice I just outlined here in this video, but they're also taking it to heart. And then, some of the companies that are first-time founders, they don't have that. They don't have a Cindy. They don't have a Renault. They don't have a Jack. They don't have. These are all names people I dropped from Tenable Network Security and so on. The point is, if you can be humble enough to work with people and share in that decision making, sharing the risk, sharing the communication, you're probably going to be able to go a lot farther and a lot further with your technology company or even with your services company. So that was my 1 through 10. I hope people understand and appreciate this kind of stuff. It is kind of a little therapeutic to share this kind of stuff. But my goal here is to inspire people to start companies. And if you're running a company, maybe you get a tip here and you're going to end up running it better. Maybe you're going to have your technology, if you're in the cyber business like I am, maybe it's going to get in more people's hands. That's the goal here, right? Now, if you think we can help you, here at Gula Tech Adventures, you know how to contact us. But if you want to like this video and share it, we appreciate that too. So I'm Ron Gula. Thanks for watching. I hope everybody has a great day. I had a lot of fun writing a letter to myself in 1997. Thanks for watching.